Prince. So let's bring in Congressman Adam Schiff, the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Schiff, you heard the Secretary say that he thinks there's a real opportunity here, that they're going into this with eyes open, but they think that Kim Jong-Un is serious about giving up his nukes, potentially. Do you think that's right?
We don't know. Look, I think it's very positive that we have this now dramatic step towards conciliation by Kim Jong-un. The history, though, is not encouraging. We see the North Koreans vacillate between confrontation and conciliation. They were in a strongly confrontational phase up until now. But look, we have to press this opportunity. We have to test it. It would be irresponsible not to. And so we have to hope that this is a change of course, but I think we need to be mindful of their record.
And it's clearly an opportunity. I mean, we're already seeing things we've never seen before. Kim Jong-un going into South Korea, appearing before the press jointly. We're already seeing things. I want to play what President Trump had to say just last night about all of this.
They were saying, what do you think President Trump had to do with it? I'll tell you what. Like, how about everything?
Okay, so I don't imagine you agree that he has everything to do with this, but doesn't the president deserve credit for, at least partial credit, for what we're seeing unfold on the Korean Peninsula?
John, I think it's more than fair to say that the combination of the president's unpredictability and indeed his bellicosity had something to do with the North Koreans deciding to come to the table. But the president takes too much credit or hangs out the mission accomplished banner. He needs to realize that we may go into a confrontational phase, and he may not want the full blame if things go south, so he ought to be a little circumspect about that. But most important for this president is when things do become confrontational, as is likely to happen, it's going to be very important that we are lashed up with our allies, South Korea and Japan. Otherwise, North Korea will pick us apart. And this president isn't particularly good about lashing up with our allies. And also mentioned, you didn't get into the Iran agreement with the secretary, but if we walk away from that Iran deal, it will not only make it much more difficult to get to yes with the North Koreans, but it will also breed a lot of distrust with our South Korean allies about whether they can rely on us.
Although I have to press you on that, because you've made this point for months, and other Democrats have, saying that the president's threats to walk away from the Iran agreement, to rip it up, we're going to doom any effort to get negotiations with the North Koreans. It hasn't been true. I mean, this has been two separate tracks, hasn't it? I mean, the president has not backed away at all from his threats on the Iran deal, and yet this effort with North Korea has moved forward faster than most people thought it would.
Well, certainly the North Koreans have done an about-face recently, but if we drop out of the Iran agreement, if we renege on the Iran deal when the Iranians are complying, it is, I think, dangerously naive to think that this is not going to influence whether the North Koreans think we can be trusted, and what's more, whether the rest of the world will have confidence that the U.S. keeps its word. If people don't believe we keep our word, then how are they going to follow our lead? They're not. So I don't think you can divorce the two.
So we had a readout overnight from the South Koreans about the meeting between Moon and Kim. And according to that readout, North Korea is now, of course, vowing to shut down their nuclear test facility, but also to allow journalists to come in to witness firsthand, to do what the facility is and what's going to be destroyed. How confident are you? I want to ask you the same question I asked Secretary Pompeo that he wouldn't answer. Do we have a good handle, does our intelligence community have a good handle on exactly the extent of those nuclear programs?
You know, North Korea is very opaque. They're a difficult intelligence target. Iran has been too. So I think we need to be circumspect about whether we can pinpoint everything. And of course, when we thought we knew what we did about Iraq, we were wrong. So it is, I think, prudent for us to go into this with some skepticism about our own capabilities, but also that means we have to insist upon a rigorous inspection regime in North Korea, something that's going to be a difficult ask with the North Koreans. They're not going to want us roaming about North Korea. If the administration is serious about insisting in North Korea on what they say is a weakness of the Iran agreement, that we can't go anywhere, anytime we want into any Iranian military facility, they're going to have a hard time persuading the North Koreans to do it. But we are going to have to verify any agreement with North Korea because they have a history of cheating.
The South Koreans also put out what they say is a quote from Kim Jong-Un during this meeting. I want to put it up on the screen. He said, if we meet often and build trust with the United States, and if an end to the war and non-aggression are promised, why would we live in difficulty with nuclear weapons? This seems to be the first direct acknowledgement from the North Koreans that they are actually willing to give up their nuclear weapons and providing the reasons why they would be willing. Do you believe that?
I don't know. Now, they've talked about denuclearization in the past. A lot of what they are agreeing to now, they've agreed to in the past. And as it has turned out, they have something very different in mind when they talk about denuclearization. Yes, if the gives up their nukes, we'll give up ours. If the U.S. leaves the Korean Peninsula, then we can talk. If, you know, they give us all kinds of economic relief before we're asked to do much, that sounds great. So, look, this is an important opportunity, and we ought to seize it. We ought to try to make it successful. But we need to go in with our eyes wide open. I think the Secretary realizes that. I think that's what he was saying this morning. But we shouldn't miss this chance to test the North Koreans. Is this something new, or is this simply Kim Jong-un as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, who is in the phase right now of conciliation?
But for right now, there is an opportunity to test. And I remember well when President Obama had his first meeting with President-elect Trump, and he said that the biggest challenge on the new president's agenda was going to be North Korea. And it looked, I mean, it looked very dark, and now there is an opportunity.
There's more than a ray of light here, and let's just hope that we can maximize the chance for success there, and let's not breed another nuclear problem with Iran at the same time.
Okay, before you go, radically different subject. I want to ask you about Ronnie Jackson, the confirmation battle. He dropped out. I know that's a Senate issue, not a House issue, but were you uncomfortable to see the kind of anonymous accusations that were thrown at Ronnie Jackson, somebody who had served as President Obama's doctor for 8 years, had a sterling reputation, you know, among many in the Obama administration, suddenly facing accusations that now at least some of them we know turned out not to be true?
Look, I'm always troubled when accusations are anonymous. I don't think you can rely on that kind of anonymous claim. But I do think, and I'm not in the weeds the way Senator Tester is,
but did Tester go over the line on this one?
Well, I mean, what I was going to say is, I imagine that folks have been talking to Senator Tester who were going to become public and non-anonymous. And the administration realized that, and that's why they withdrew the nomination. So I think that's what prompted that move. But yes, if it were on nothing more than the anonymous claims, that's a slender read. But I think...
Because at least one of these claims was, the Secret Service said was simply not true. One of the more explosive charges, the Secret Service came out and said.
Yeah, I'm not in a position to know what the actual facts are, so I would defer to my Senate colleagues.